welcome back to QualiFYI for a very special episode featuring Chuck Reynolds, the CTO at TSI. Chuck, so happy to have you again. How's it going?
Very well, thank you. Thanks a lot for doing this for us.
Of course. And in a previous episode that we did together, you spoke to us a little bit about cyber range and cyber range training, but you probably only scratched the surface because there is so much more to get into. So tell us, what is the biggest issue in the cyber world today?
As someone on the board of a major state told me, the biggest issue we have today is basically training the folks and the new cyber engineers that come out of our university programs to meet the growing need that we have and training them on the actual tools they'll be using. Most of the universities and colleges across the country have great 2- and 4-year and even master's and PhD level cybersecurity programs. The issue is that they're trained on mainly open source tools or on canned cyber range types of tools that produce great scenarios for beginner and intermediate trainers, but unfortunately that doesn't address the real need of industry. When these young cyber engineers come to work at a new company, they're presented with a whole set of tools from companies like Cisco and Juniper and others that they've never touched, they've never been able to use on, and it takes months and even years for them to become familiar enough to actually be cyber warriors and cyber defense people in those environments. So there's a huge need for what we call an actual real production replica that can be used as a cyber range in these environments. So being able to provide that with all the tools that matches your full production environment exactly, so you train and protect the actual things that you need to protect within your company.
Protect. You said that word several times, and I think we all understand why, right? You're protecting. At the end of the day, as we said before, cyber attacks really expose a company's vulnerabilities, and you are protecting the companies from any of that happening. So that's fantastic. So how can one build a cyber practice environment to meet the training needs of their cyber experts?
Well, it's a very difficult and heavy lift. A lot of the virtual machines that people use in their networks do not necessarily match the actual physical appliances from these particular vendors like Cisco and Juniper. So when you're building up a virtual range, you actually get stuck with a situation where you're not using a full production replica. So you really need to have both a physical presence and a virtual presence in your cyber range. The other problem is it's a very expensive admin person that's required to walk through tremendous complex task of setting up a replica of your full production environment. Without automation of that and treating that as a service with self-service portals, it's an extremely difficult and expensive lift, and it's why a lot of companies don't do it. It's just too hard to do.
Speaking of too hard to do and difficulties, what are the challenges to delivering a cyber range?
Well, there's quite a number. First, you need to be able to support all of the tools in your full production environment. You have to support both of them physically and virtually. You have to be able to support the workflows of cyber tools that cyber warriors and cyber engineers, security engineers are going to be using. So you have to have automation around those things. You have to have automation around the cyber workflows that people would use, and then automation to set up the production environment rapidly, to save away instances of it and restore those for incident and going back and looking at and judging how a cyber exercise was run, to do the forensics of that network, to do the forensics of a particular cyber attack. You need to be able to do save and restores of the entire production environment. And having a tool that can automate that, like Cloud Shell in our case, we can provide that as a solution, and we actually have coined that and called that Cyber Range as a Service, as a registered trademark, is a full entire system that we can deliver along with libraries, automation infrastructure, and the tools to rapidly deploy cyber ranges for your group.
Automation, automation, automation. That's what I got out of that. That's fabulous. So you mentioned cyber range as a service. What does that from TSI and Quali provide for the entities that need cyber range?
Well, first, it really addresses the agility and the ease of use of all the people that participate in developing, building, and deploying, and using and consuming a cyber range. So the admins have a much easier job because they can spin it up with not a lot of work. The end users have a beautiful self-service portal with LMS, learning management system, like instructions on how to get started. You provide automation shells from the TOSCA standards that basically allows you to have quick and rapid use of very complex systems with single button clicks, and then capturing the entire thing, the history of it, so you can go back and replay what's went down in a particular cyber range. All of those things, and then feeding that into business intelligence so you can actually develop an ROI for your cyber range. Having all these factors together really makes everybody's life a lot easier.
Fantastic. Well, this was very interesting, and I'm really excited to learn more about cyber range. So thank you for your time today, Chuck, and it's always a pleasure.
My pleasure too.
Visit quali.com to learn more about environment as a service.